Hello, you guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. So, let's talk about clocking. Before I transitioned, my biggest fear, or one of my biggest fears, was being laughed at, was getting clocked. I was always aware of how people were perceiving me. Now, I'm someone who is very hypervigilant. I notice things that other people don't notice. So I knew going into my transition that there was a possibility that, I would get laughed at and people would point at me or just behave poorly. And that just scared me. It scared me like you wouldn't believe, girl. I would have nightmares. I really would have nightmares. But I only say to people that despite your fears, you should act, because everything you want lies on the other side of what you are afraid of. And I knew that it was easier to live with fear of being ridiculed than it was to live in a body that was foreign to me. So I sort of took the decision that I was going to transition. I was going to do it scared. I was just going to jump into the deep pool with ice in there, and I was just going to do it. Now, in the 10 years since I transitioned, I have gotten clocked more times than I care to remember. And I think over time, you almost become desensitized. It doesn't hurt as much because your threshold in some ways gets, higher and higher and higher, or lower, or you know what I mean. It doesn't affect you as much. It still hurts, but you slowly start to get used to it, or at least I did. And I suppose after surgery and, hormones, it definitely reduced. So last year, I was back in the Eastern Cape, probably at my worst. I was living with my family, which was not a good idea. Unemployed, sort of trying to figure out how I was going to, get back in the game and get back to some sense of normality. So I find out that the Department of Education was looking for teachers, so English teachers to send over to China, and they were going to be conducting interviews. Now, it would have probably been better if I had just done this online, but I didn't have access to the internet. So I did the only thing that I could do. I walked. So in King Williamstown, I lived in an area called Daleview. So it's in the suburbs. And the Department of Education, if you are familiar with King Williamstown, is in one of the townships, a township called Zwelicha. It's about 6 kilometers if you're walking from my house. So I began the arduous, the difficult journey of walking to the Department of Education. Now, as I'm walking, I'm sweating, I'm looking a mess, my makeup has all but fallen off my face. And before you actually get to the Department of Education, in Zwelicha, there is a high school. It's a huge high school. It's called Temba Labandu or Temba Letu or something along those lines. So it was after school, and there were about maybe 500, 800 kids waiting for the bus or waiting for their parents. And I remember as I was going to go down that street, about to get to the Department of Education, I saw just this army of teenagers. And all I could think of was that My Chemical Romance song, the teenager scare the living shit out of me. The reason I was scared and nervous was, y'all saw how I looked in old videos. I was thin, I was enamored, I looked a hot mess. And I know that in life it only takes one person, just one bitch to clock you, and everybody knows. But I'd walked for such a long distance, and I was almost there. And I had a decision. I was either gonna walk down the street and pass that crowd of teenagers and actually get to the Department of Education and do what I intended to do, or I was gonna be scared. I was gonna be, chicken shit and turn around and not try. Obviously, I decided to go. There was no way I was not going to go to the Department of Education just because there was a possibility of me getting clocked. Come on, girl. You know I wasn't about to do that. Hell no. So, I start walking. I start walking through this crowd, and probably a minute into it, somebody bursts out laughing, and then I hear, these slurs. And then there's an eruption of laughter. That's when, all of the slurs get thrown at me, and you know how people do. You know the names they call us. I don't need to say them. So I'm walking through all of these kids, and they start pulling out their cell phones and recording me. And every step that I was taking, it almost felt like I was just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the crowd, and deeper and deeper and deeper into the transphobia. But I knew, I sort of knew deep in myself that as long as they did not touch me, as long as they did not get physical, as long as they weren't all up in my face, their laughter truly meant nothing. It was funny because there was a girl who came running towards me so she could get a close-up and record me. So she runs up and she's like recording me, I don't know for what, probably for WhatsApp or something, thinking that it's the funniest thing in the world. And I was like, baby girl, if you want a show, let me give you a show. So I started dancing. Of course, the laughter, gets louder and louder. But I knew that the only way I could get through this was by simply valuing my own opinion of myself over the hatred or the stupidity or the ignorance that was around me. So I get through the crowd, and finally I'm at the security gate. And I'm like, thank God I'm away from those heckling teenagers. Let me just get in, put in my application, and hopefully something good comes from this. What I did not expect was for the security guards to sort of deny access, so I was not allowed in the building. In fact, the security guards thought it was funny that the teenagers who were all around me at the time, they thought it was funny that they had made such a commotion, and they were laughing at me. And they took it upon themselves to just, continue making fun of me. So here I am, I've walked 6 kilometers, I'm sweating, upset, just wanting to get this application over and done with. And all I was hearing was no, 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 no. And I knew why they were saying no. I knew why I was being denied. And in life, sometimes that happens. The world around you can sometimes make it so difficult for you to do the simplest thing. And it's easy in that moment to just collapse into anger, into hatred, and want to fight back and want to argue back, or want to swear and just, make a scene. But something that I live by is, if you knew your ability to feel good, you would ask no one to be different so that you can feel good. What started off as a simple job application turned into another moment where I had to stand up for myself, stand up for my transition, and show these people that, look, I am not moved by your stupidity. What moves me is the fire that's inside of me, is the truth inside of me. So I turned around and I go straight past those teenagers again. At this point, some of the little boys were talking about how they should beat me up. Girl, I didn't walk any faster. I just flipped my hair, I smiled, did my little shimmy, because I was not going to let them see weakness in me. In life, you'll get clocked. Look, we all get clocked at some point. The secret is for you to not clock yourself. And what I mean by that is never betray yourself. I know it's hard to be out here in the world where it feels like everybody is out to get us. But the minute you realize that you are your best friend, you are the one that is there pushing you, you are the one who's paying for these surgeries, you are the one who is paving the way for this life, then you realize whatever they think is just what they think. So I get to the end of the road, and these teenage girls come running up to me, and they were asking me all these questions. And I remember I turned and I looked at them, and I just said, baby, my angel, what other people think of you doesn't matter. There'll always be something that people think is wrong, whether it's your skin color, your weight, your gender expression, your sexuality, it doesn't matter. There will be somebody who has something stupid to say. And it doesn't really matter. It only hurts when you agree with it. So I promise you, it doesn't matter how hard they laugh, how hard they hit at you. If you stand strong in who you are, you'll get through it, I promise. And it does get easier, but it gets easier when you start to realize that your transition was for you. You never shared the dysphoria with any of these people. Hell, you didn't even know them for all you care. So I want you, every time you go outside, to remind yourself that, this is your journey. This is literally your journey. This is your story. And whoever laughs, laughs. But stand in your truth. Always stand in your truth. And remember, there are others like you who've paved the way. And we are all trailblazers in our own way. And it's funny because I actually got a kick out of making those kids laugh. Because if my mere existence can bring about that much laughter and bring about that level of joy, even though it's that lowest level of joy, then so be it. Another person's laughter is their own. Another person's laughter is not a reflection on me. I love you. And you're beautiful. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks or says. What matters is what you say about yourself. And it'll always be that way. So whether it's one person clocking you 1,000, it does not matter. As long as you never clock yourself. As long as you never betray yourself. I love you, girl.